You have said it or had it said to you. 3 words, I love you. It feels timeless and it feels personal, like something each of us discovers for ourselves. But have you ever wondered how old those words really are? Whether the people who lived thousands of years ago felt the same dizzy, aching thing you also have felt, and how they said it in a world with no phones, no cards, no songs on the radio. So how did ancient humans say I love you? The answer is beautifully written on a piece of clay, and it is the oldest love poem we have ever found. It comes from the ancient city of Sumer in Mesopotamia, and it is around 4,000 years old. It is a small clay tablet covered in cuneiform, currently kept in a museum in Istanbul, and it is a love poem spoken by a bride to her king. The words are warm and playful and unmistakably tender. She calls him her beloved, speaks of her longing for him, of honey and sweetness, of wanting to be close to him. 4,000 years ago, before almost anything we call history, a person pressed words of love into wet clay. So tell me in the comments, what are you feeling right now? Write only initial letter of your loved one in comments, so nothing in them needs translating in the heart. The tablet was dug up over 100 years ago and sat in a museum drawer, cataloged only by a number, for decades before anyone realized what it was. A scholar finally translated it in the 1950s and understood he was reading the oldest love poem ever found. It is thought to have been part of a sacred yearly ceremony recited by a bride chosen for the king. But strip away the ritual, and what remains is pure, recognizable longing. A person telling another person, in the most beautiful words they can find, that they cannot bear to be apart from them. 4,000 years, and the feeling has not aged a single day. That is the first surprise, and the most important one. Romantic love is not a modern invention. People sometimes claim it is, that ancient marriages were only deals, only property and alliances, and that love as we know it was invented much more recently. But the evidence says otherwise. The feeling, the dizzy, aching, longing feeling appears again and again in the oldest writing we have. It is human, it is ancient, it was always here. Look at the oldest stories. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature, around 4,000 years old, is at its heart a story about love and grief, about the overwhelming bond between two people and the agony when one of them dies. Ancient Egyptian love poetry, over 3,000 years old, sounds startlingly familiar. The lovers call each other my brother and my sister, as terms of deep affection. They describe the racing heart, the sleeplessness, the way the beloved's presence makes the whole world brighter. One poem describes a young man so lovesick at the sight of his beloved that he doesn't know how to behave. 3,000 years ago, love made people foolish, exactly as it does now. These Egyptian poems found on scraps of papyrus and broken pottery over 3,000 years old could be song lyrics today. In one, a young woman compares being with her beloved to a cool drink in the heat. In another, a lovesick man says he will lie in his bed and pretend to be ill, just so the one he loves will come to visit him. In another, the beloved is described as a snare the poet has happily, hopelessly walked into. The metaphors, the longing, the gentle drama of it all would not be out of place in a love song written this year. Across 3,000 years and a dead language, the heart is saying exactly the same things. But saying it out loud was only one way. For most of human history, love was shown far more than it was spoken, and often it was shown through giving. Through the gift, this may be older than our own species. Among the most touching finds in all of archaeology are ancient burials where the dead were laid to rest with enormous care, bodies arranged gently. Flowers, possibly in some cases, precious objects placed with them, children buried with their toys. These are not the acts of people who did not love. You do not spend hours, days, carving thousands of beads to bury with someone, unless that someone meant everything to you. Grief is the price of love, and ancient grief is written all through the ground. Where we find people mourning, we know people loved, and love was given in objects meant to last. Rings are astonishingly old. The ancient Egyptians exchanged rings of woven reeds and leather as tokens of devotion thousands of years ago. The circle, with no beginning and no end, was a symbol of eternity. The Romans gave betrothal rings, sometimes of iron, and there is an old belief, passed down from them, that the ring goes on the fourth finger of the left hand because they thought a vein ran straight from that finger to the heart. They called it the vena amoris, the vein of love. It is not anatomically true. There is no such vein. But it is one of the most romantic ideas anyone ever had, and we still follow it today at almost every wedding on earth. A medical mistake made too, Susan years ago, still worn on millions of hands. So tell me in the comments and share your romantic story if you wish. The Romans also gave a particular kind of ring carved with two clasped right hands, a symbol of agreement and union. That design, two hands joined, survived for nearly 2,000 years and still appears on rings today. When you see a couple exchange rings now, you are watching a ceremony whose pieces were assembled across thousands of years by Egyptians and Romans and countless cultures since, each adding a layer to the same simple act. Here is a circle. It has no end. Like this, I will not stop loving you. Lovers gave other things too. Flowers, whose meaning as a gift of love is ancient and nearly universal. Jewelry, locks of hair, small carved tokens. In many cultures, food itself was love, the act of feeding someone, of saving the best portion for them, of cooking for them. A language of devotion that needed no words at all. To be fed by someone, in a world where food was hard to get, was to be cherished. And there was scent and adornment, the ancient language of attraction. People have been making themselves beautiful for each other for tens of thousands of years. We have found ground pigments used as makeup, and beads worn as jewelry, going back over 100,000 years, long before farming, long before cities. Perfumes and scented oils were treasured across the ancient world. The desire to be beautiful in the eyes of someone you long for is not a modern vanity. It is one of the oldest human impulses there is. But perhaps the most powerful way ancient humans said I love you was the one that left no object behind it all, the song, the story. Long before love poems were written down, they were sung, around fires, across countless generations. Every culture on earth has love songs. The themes are always the same: longing, devotion, the pain of separation, the joy of being near the one you love. When that Sumerian poem was finally pressed into clay 4,000 years ago, it was almost certainly capturing something far older, a song that had been sung by the living to the beloved for thousands of years before anyone could write it down. And that is the quiet, astonishing truth at the center of all this. The feeling you have felt, the one that makes the heart race and the words catch in the throat, is not yours alone, and it is not new. It is one of the oldest things a human being can feel. The Sumerian bride felt it. The Egyptian poet felt it. The person who carved 1,000 beads to bury with someone they had lost felt it. Across every century, in every language, under every sky, humans have been finding ways to say this one impossible thing to each other. The words changed. The clay became paper, became a screen, became a song on the radio. The reed ring became gold. But the thing underneath never changed at all. When you say those 3 words, you are not saying something modern. You are joining a chorus that stretches back to the very beginning of us. The same longing, the same tenderness, the same need to tell one person that they are the one. It is perhaps the most human sentence there is, and it is unimaginably old. So tell me in the comments and subscribe to the channel now. What is the most meaningful way someone has ever said, I love you to you, in words, or without them? 4,000 years ago, someone was trying to find exactly the right way to say it too. Some things, it turns out, never change.